Welcome to the Legacy Leaders Podcast. Are you doing the best for your client to help them create their legacy? Are you creating a plan that goes far beyond finances to help people ensure that it becomes the driving force behind all decisions? On this podcast, hosts Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller will help you with growing your practice and your clients' peace of mind. Together, they bring the best and brightest minds to share with you how to help your clients develop their best legacy. And now, here are your hosts, Katie Beth and Stan.
Welcome to the Legacy Leaders Podcast. I am your guest host, Lori Varco. Today, my guest is a legal expert, Jonathan Huza. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's talk a little bit about what you do. So tell me, why did you end up going to law school, Jonathan?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Lori. It's a pleasure being here with you and your audience. I went to law school. Just for me, I was at a time in my life where I just wanted to be more of an authority figure, if you will, in a field, and have more of kind of professional credentials behind you. And so, at that point in time in my life, I'd finished my Bachelor of Commerce degree. As business has always been a passion of mine. But I wanted to add a little bit more to my educational portfolio, if you will. And I thought that law would be a nice complement to my business interests.
That's awesome. So how long have you been practicing the law?
I've been practicing now since 2011, so it's gone by really fast, as I'm sure probably you've heard that said before by other people.
Yes.
Kind of getting tired of hearing that. Everyone says it all the time. But yeah, I've been practicing since 2011, so it's been 13 years now.
Wow, very cool. Now, do you do estate planning?
I do. Estate planning is one of my areas of expertise, along with real estate and corporate commercial.
Okay, so why estate planning?
Well, for me, estate planning is something that I've always enjoyed, along with the other areas that I practice in. In particular, what I like about estate planning is that it offers more of a collaborative team approach with your clients. And I enjoy finding creative strategies also in estate planning. It depends on the circumstances, where you can help people save money. You can offer valuable insights to help them and their families avoid stress and anxiety in the future. There's other areas of law which don't really offer those same types of opportunities to have that same kind of collaborative approach as you have in estate planning.
Awesome. And what does that really mean to you, Jonathan, to be able to practice and bring that to folks? And what's the true meaning for you?
Well, I would say for me, what it really means is it means first and foremost to be an expert, someone that your clients can rely on, someone that your clients can trust. As far as your expertise goes, trust, but also trust you as an individual, trust you as a person. And so, I see myself as a trusted confidant also. My clients share with me a lot of very personal information, both family, personal, financial information. And so for me, I'm to an extent like flattered that people trust you with that information, but I take that also very seriously.
That's awesome. So how did you get to this firm? Is this your own law firm, Jonathan?
Yeah, it is. And I joined this firm back in 2012. I was more inexperienced then. I was younger then, didn't have as many years under my belt, and put in my time. And recently, in 2021, we were a two-lawyer firm for many, many years. Actually, we still are a two-lawyer firm, but my senior partner at the time in 2021 retired. And I took over the practice a couple of years ago, and it's been exciting. It's been amazing ever since. Being a true entrepreneur at heart is something that before I didn't really have that opportunity to run it as a business, the law firm, and now as the owner of the law firm, I have the opportunity to also run it as a business, and that's just really exciting for me. So I've really enjoyed that.
That's great. I can certainly relate to being a business owner. So who's your ideal client, Jonathan?
Well, I would say for me, the ideal client are high net worth individuals, business owners, farmers, individuals with assets. It's just there's more opportunities that present themselves as far as I go and what I can bring to the table for people in those situations, as far as the estate planning techniques that we can use, the tax savings techniques we can use. It makes it a little bit more challenging, a little bit more fun. Don't get me wrong. I still have a lot of clients that don't fall into those bins, and I'm happy to work with those clients as well. It's just you're a little bit more limited sometimes as to what estate planning techniques and tools you can use.
That's great. So how do you find your ideal clients? Do you find that
I
you've just been in business long enough now that it's referrals or?
Yeah, I'd say that's right, Lori. I'd say I get a lot of my business through referrals. Just putting in your time as a lawyer, slowly but surely, you kind of build up your network of clients, your network of people that trust you, that know you. So I get referrals from accountants, word of mouth, clients who were happy with our service refer their family members to us. Lawyers who have retired, they will refer their clients to us. People find me online too. Just doing Google searches, which I'm sure you may run into in your line of business as well. So kind of a variety of things, but I would say mostly word of mouth referrals.
Okay. What are the common issues you really help with, Jonathan?
There's a lot of things that we can help with. I mean, it depends really on the situation the person's in as far as how we can help them. If you have someone, let's say, is elderly, but still mentally capable and doesn't have a will, just putting a will in place is a big help for them. Whereas you have other people that are in different scenarios, like business owners, farmers, high net worth individuals, who they may require more assistance. They may already have some estate planning measures in place, such as dual wills, powers of attorney, etc., maybe a family trust. The corporate stuff's fairly well taken care of, but there's additional things you could do to help them out, to help them save probate taxes, which is one thing that we as lawyers focus on. It's not the only type of tax to focus on as a lawyer, but it's kind of the thing that lawyers really get focused on because they're more aware of that process. So there's all kinds of things we can do. We can help people with, if you're a business owner, we can do what's called split wills, where we'll save you probate taxes at the time of your death by shielding assets in what's called a private will. If you have a disabled beneficiary, we can do something called a Henson Trust to shield your disabled beneficiary from disentitling them to ODSP benefits. We do trusts in wills. So if you want to stagger when your beneficiaries will receive the money or the inheritance under the will. So if you feel that, oh, my children are too young to inherit several $1 million at 18, which I don't blame you, I want to stagger it.
Yeah.
We can do that too through trust provisions in your will. We help with executor appointments, power of attorney appointments. We do corporate reorganizations as well, which is outside of estate planning, but still it dovetails nicely with estate planning as well.
That's awesome. What are the common misconceptions about having an estate plan?
I would say there's probably two big ones that I see fairly often. Number one is people feel like maybe if they don't have a lot of assets, they don't need a will, or they feel like, oh no, my things are already taken care of, I don't need a will. And that's almost always not the case. Most of us always we'll have at least something to leave at the time of our death as far as assets go. And so to meet with a lawyer who's skilled in that area, I think would be really valuable. The amount of money that they can save by meeting with someone, even if they don't even create a will, but just to consult with a lawyer who does estate planning, the amount of savings they can bring to you and your family members as far as taxes go at the time of your death would far exceed any cost you'd have to pay with that lawyer. Secondly, one thing that I see from time to time, which is a misconception, is that people feel that they can save a couple of dollars and do a will on their own, which usually leads to more problems. And the savings you're incurring, especially if you're doing a basic will, is not significant. You're maybe saving a couple $100 or a few $100s by doing it yourself. But that can oftentimes lead to thousands of dollars of issues, assets not going to the person you want, not having the right person managing your affairs, i.e. executor appointments, having the will be invalidated because you didn't follow the proper formalities in creating the will and signing the will and witnessing the will. So those are probably the two big ones.
That's great. Can you tell us a story of an estate plan going wrong? Probably because they didn't have a plan, but can you think of a situation where someone really didn't take your advice and things didn't, without giving away names or making it obvious? But we know that things can go wrong if you don't visit with someone like yourself or even myself. So can you think of a situation?
Yeah, I've seen a few situations. You mentioned in your question how, usually these when it goes awry, it's usually a result of not getting the right advice. However, one situation which kind of stands out in my mind, which I dealt with over a long period of time, was a situation where the person was mentally incapable, but people around the incapable person were swarming, almost like, if you will, vultures, to try to prey upon this incapable person, and brought the person to see various different lawyers in the hopes of getting them to change their will, so that the will would be changed in favor of the person who was preying upon this elderly person, vulnerable person. And so I was dealing with that scenario after the person had passed away, and trying to undo the damage that had been done. Unfortunately, this individual was brought to see a lawyer who wasn't really doing things by the book, in my opinion, and actually prepared a will for this person, when I don't think that this lawyer had any business preparing a will for the person. Because, for those of your audience members who don't know, is you cannot prepare a will when you're mentally incapable. So if you do not have a will when you're mentally incapable, then it's just too late. And if you do have a will, which this person had, they couldn't change their will, but they did change it, and that caused issues. And there was court proceedings that ensued that I was involved in, and it dragged on for years, caused a lot of stress and heartache between the family members, totally unnecessary. There was a few things that led to it. If that lawyer had maybe been a little bit more responsible, that may have not opened the door to that kind of abuse. But also the abuser also took advantage of the situation as well. So that's one situation where that really went off the rails and was really quite sad.
That is horrible. I hate to hear those stories. So on
Yeah,
a positive note, let's talk about something going right.
yeah.
You have a
Well,
story where it really worked out, and thank you for creating that plan.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of scenarios. Fortunately, I can think of far more scenarios that went right than scenarios that went bad. I can think of one scenario quite recently where I had a client. So her and her husband were quite wealthy. They left behind a fair amount of money. The husband passed away first. And I'd met with them before. We had everything buttoned down. We did their wills. We did what's called split wills. So we did a private will and a public will. So we're able to shield assets in the private wills and made it exempt from probate taxes. So we saved them, I think, over $100,000 of probate taxes. And we also made sure to have a lot of assets held in joint names. So when the husband passed away, by operation of law, the surviving spouse became the owner of the joint assets. And so there wasn't really any probate that really even needed to happen in that scenario, because everything was just done properly, and we made sure that all the assets were held in joint names. So so it was a really simple, straightforward administration of the estate for the surviving widow. She was grateful that everything went smoothly, and it was really easy. She had more important things to deal with, such as grieving the loss of her late husband. So
Sure.
it just made it really nice for her that things were well taken care of.
That is what a great story, Jonathan. So
Yeah.
what would be one of your biggest challenges?
I would say probably one of the biggest challenges is I kind of alluded to it before, which is to educate people on the importance of not delaying when it comes to handling their estate plan. It's something that I think a lot of us can put off, and it's easy to put off because a lot of us feel that, well, I'm of good health, I'm relatively young, and I don't need to worry about these things, and this is only something I can deal with, years down the road. Well, fortunately, as you know, Lori, like we can't predict when it's our time, and unfortunate circumstances can happen at any moment. And so it's important to be proactive and be prepared. And also, like I said before, if you're mentally incapable, you can't do these documents. You cannot prepare an estate plan. So you could be leaving your family with a real mess on their hands, a loss of money as well. It's going to be legal fees. There's going to be more taxes to pay. You also, if you don't have a will in place, then that means that there's no one appointed as an executor. And if you have some strained family relations, then that could mean that there's infighting between family members as to who's going to step up and be an executor. In other words, who's going to have control of the estate. So if you have siblings that don't get along, and say, mom and dad both pass away, and there's no estate plan in place, and now the siblings are at each other's throat as to who's going to be in control of this estate, who's going to be the executor, and they don't trust one another. Now they each have lawyers, and now it's tens of thousands of dollars of legal fees later, which are chewing into the estate. And so it's a long-winded answer, but one of the important things to just keep in mind is please don't delay and go see your estate planning lawyer as soon as possible to get your affairs buttoned down.
That's great advice. So what do you like best about everything that you're doing, Jonathan? We're going to wrap up with this. Is there anything you would care to share about what you just love about being an estate lawyer?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say it's really the connections I have with my clients. I really value those tremendously, establishing that rapport, that trust you have with your clients. I really enjoy that very much. Feeling like you're really, it maybe sounds kind of cliche, but feeling like you've made a difference in someone's life as far as their financial plan goes and their estate plan goes, by saving them money, changing around the way that maybe they hold assets, creating family trusts, split wills, corporate reorganizations, etc. Yeah, and when you can see the kind of the fruit of your labor, like the example I gave before, where the widow was left with a very simple, clean, neat estate plan that was not stressful for her. Things like that, where you really feel like you're positively contributing to your clients, and your clients really depend on you and trust you. It's really those dynamics that really I like the most.
That's fantastic. Jonathan, where can the audience find you?
Well, probably the easiest way, if anyone's interested in if they have any questions about anything that I mentioned on your podcast, would be they can just simply send me an email. And my email address is jhuza@law, Cornwall, CORNWALL.com. Just send me an email. They can also go on my website, which is lawcornwall.com. They can find our contact information there, and they can also find me on LinkedIn if they wish. Jonathan Huza. You can just Google Jonathan Huza LinkedIn and contact me there as well.
That's great, Jonathan. What a pleasure it's been to have you on our podcast program. I want to thank everybody for listening. This has been the Legacy Leaders Podcast with your guest host, Lori Varco. My guest was Jonathan Huza. For information on Jonathan and the work that he does, visit his website at www.lawcornwall.com. We will also show a link in the show notes for you. Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Legacy Leaders Podcast with Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller. For more information on them and the show, please visit pinnaclelegacylaw.com. If you like what you've learned today, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.